Welcome to Hypno Geeks. It's episode 8. Can you believe we're on episode 8 already? Hypno Geeks is the podcast for therapists, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists, counselors, people who want to help other people to have an amazing life, but they want to thrive and not just survive. Today, we are going to be talking about burnout, therapists' burnout, because we've been seeing it a lot recently. A lot of my colleagues have had crazy busy schedules over the last couple of years. We've changed how we've worked. A lot of us are working more digitally now, which means we can see clients more frequently back to back. We're also hosting things online, group events, so we're seeing more people. And with the impact of the lockdown, the war, the financial crisis, there's a huge need for what we're offering right now. And a lot of us are working more hours than we've ever worked before, and we love what we do. What we do is so rewarding, and it's so fantastic, and it's such a brilliant life that we can have for ourselves. But perhaps you're starting to feel a little bit like you can't be bothered to get out of bed to work today. Perhaps you're starting to begin to feel a bit stressed. Maybe you've lost your love a little bit for what you do. Maybe working with that client at 3 o'clock this afternoon is just feeling like it might be quite a challenge, and you have to almost build yourself up to get there. But because therapist burnout is real. And when therapists are faced with chronic stressors day after day, and what I mean by chronic stresses is listening to other people's stories, listening to other people's troubles, listening to other people's challenges and traumas, particularly if you're a therapist that does work with people who've experienced quite horrific, challenging experiences in their life. When we listen to those stories, when we go on that healing journey with our clients, very often we're living those experiences in our minds, where we're fully with them in that painful event, that painful experience that they're having. And when we're faced with those chronic, repeated stressful moments, anxious moments, painful events in our imaginations, day after day after day, without any opportunity to rest, to reset, to recharge, when we're not able to recover fully ourselves, then we as therapists begin to experience emotional challenges, mental challenges. We begin to emotionally and mentally shut down. We may even notice that we do feel tired, tiredness that we can't seem to get rid of. We're exhausted. We maybe feel quite apathetic about things, not wanting to engage in things, not wanting to go places or do things. We might feel quite negative in our lives as we're sort of engaging with others. We might even feel quite negative about the work that we're doing. And let's face it, practicing endless empathy and patience can start to feel really impossible. So at our college, we've recognised that this is a huge problem for people. And we've also seen and experienced many of our colleagues struggle, not just with exhaustion and burnout, but with actually sometimes mental health challenges and mental illness as a result of burnout. So we decided that we'd address it. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome an expert in all things to do with confidence building and burnout and self-development and growth, one of our graduates, Annabelle Goode. Welcome to Hypno Geeks.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell us, just before we kind of like get into burnout and what it is, and what you've put together for therapists. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and who you are.
Okay. So I think for me, I think I kind of realized very early on that I was quite a highly sensitive person. Always been very empathetic and always wanted to help other people. My background's in psychology. So that's kind of always been where my interests have lied. But I think if I kind of look back, really, I can kind of pinpoint it to a time when I was very anxious myself, which is kind of more when I started to look into more holistic approaches. So that's kind of actually when I got into hypnotherapy. And yeah, and just finding more holistic ways of being able to heal has been a huge part of my journey. And then now being able to use that to help other people is just really powerful, I think. So helping other people that go through bouts of exhaustion, go through bouts of burnout, perhaps bouts of anxiety, and finding ways to not only cope in the moment, but actually have these techniques that you can use moving forward. So it's kind of a way of being able to provide tools to manage as well, really. So not only just kind of managing symptoms as and when they come up, but combating that so that they don't come up, basically nipping it in the bud.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that at the beginning of lockdown, which it feels like a million years ago now, I did a podcast with a life coach who was a burnout specialist, and she was saying that she was seeing so much more burnout than before because people were working from home. And although the idea of working from home sounds amazing, and you can work in your PJs if you want, the reality is that you're usually in a room that is usually a room that's connected with rest. And now it's become a workspace, and workspaces that were quite challenging. You were also around your family members, your cats, your dogs, your children, your partners, and actually that was quite distracting and made focusing on what you were doing more challenging, more difficult, more tiring. And that actually people tended to work more hours than they would normally, and we're beginning to find it a real challenge to break away from work,
to compartmentalize, I guess, between family and social life and personal life and work. And I think that is actually probably a lot of where the exhaustion and burnout has come from for a lot of people, is that working from home, because there isn't really a separation. And I think especially during lockdowns, when for a lot of people work was their main focus because there wasn't really anything else going on, so you would just work really long hours and put as much as you could into that because there wasn't really anything else going on. And then I think it almost seems like the expectation now seems to be so much higher that people need to kind of maintain that somehow, which is kind of impossible when everything's now obviously opened back up and life is kind of still I was going to say back as normal, but I don't really know what normal
not
is.
sure what
But out of the lockdowns, I mean, but it almost seems like there isn't that adjustment back to kind of like juggling all the different like aspects of life. It's very much still work focused, and
it's more.
Yeah, more. And I think even just with the time we're in at the moment, with it kind of being autumn heading into winter, it's also with the seasons as well. I think we are naturally supposed to have a bit of a hermit phase in the winter and work less hours and kind of focus more on self-care and things. And I think, again, there isn't really that period in most people's lives. It's very much fast-paced a lot of the time, which is kind of unsustainable. And I think that's why some people do get exhausted. So,
Well, the statistics would suggest that 35% of all people who work in mental well-being experience burnout as a result of work, as a result of doing the job that they love doing. And that statistic of 35% was recorded in 2017.
So before lockdowns,
pre-pandemic statistics. Things that cause burnout, in terms of just burnout for everyone, not just for therapists, have kind of like stressors that contribute to burnout are also more predominant in I think in our society at the moment. Things that cause burnout, things like the current political, social situation, things like the pandemic, things like COVID in numbers increasing, death tolls being broadcast on TV. I think the loss of the Queen, really had a huge impact on the people in our country, and I think possibly more so than we were expecting, with the changes in government and the financial situation and all the kind of chopping and changing, and who do we trust, and can we trust this news, and what's real news and what's fake news, and what's happening. It's all a bit of a mishmash of stressors that are all external, but they're all around us all of the time.
Yeah. I think what you said about change is a big one, because there has been so much change over the last few years, and with change, which is obviously inevitable, like things are constantly changing and evolving, but there is a certain amount of stress that comes with that because of the uncertainty. Because once there's a big change happened, especially if it is on a big global scale or something of that level, or if it is something personal even, there is like a kind of period of readjusting, and then kind of allowing yourself to kind of figure out how to process and how to move forward with the current state of affairs, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a strange time to be going through at the moment. But along with that, there is also, like you said, so many stresses, and I think with having so many different things causing us to be stressed now, it just means that there's almost this constant like low level of stress and anxiety that we've almost become used to, because our stresses are constantly being activated through various different stimulations from circumstances or whatever it is that's perceived to be stressful. They're not getting turned off, so that stress cycle isn't ending, meaning that we are just kind of in this perpetual state of like low level anxiety that we're kind of pushing down and just keep going and ignoring it. But that is when it leads to burnout, because it's kind of low level enough that you can still manage your day-to-day life. You can still generally push through until it gets to a certain point, and then I think it does catch up with you, which is unfortunately, I think, why a lot of people, when they do then take time off work, or just take time out for themselves, like with Christmas holidays and things like that, I think that is a lot of the time when people do end up getting unwell, because everything just catches up with them at that point. They kind of stop, and their body's like, okay, now I need to use this time to really recuperate. So
yeah, absolutely. So therapists, we're human and we live in the real world, and we're experiencing what everyone else is experiencing as well. But I think often what can happen when we're in that low level of sort of feeling anxious, feeling stressed all the time, and it might even be at a subconscious level because of what's going on around us. Sometimes we have clients that we really want or to help, or we have clients who are going through a really difficult time, or we have clients that have experienced things that are pretty horrific, and we almost find it difficult to detach from our clients. We find it difficult to separate, to say goodbye at the end of the session to what's going on in their life, what their issues and what their concerns are, and particularly if it's something quite stressful or disturbing. It might be that in your mind you're playing over your session, you're reliving some of the things that they've told you, you're re-experiencing things, and you're lying in bed at night. Now I know I recognized within myself some of the symptoms of burnout when I was teaching, because I was teaching in my sleep the other week, and I was like, okay.
Not even getting rest in your sleep.
Was teaching, and when you can't detach from your job, when you're dreaming about it, when you're ruminating, when you're going over it in your mind, that is also a stressor that can contribute to burnout. What's the issue there in terms of, well, not being able to switch off? That's a huge challenge for us as therapists, isn't it?
Definitely. I think having kind of a routine where there's something almost that kind of like bookends the day somehow, whether that's kind of going for like a walk, like a meditative walk afterwards, to kind of clear your head and say, okay, when I go back to the house, this is my evening time now, this is separate. Having something, I think, that kind of almost like separates it, because especially if you are working, especially if you are working from home, like we were saying, because you are in your space all the time, and that's supposed to be a space where you can relax and rest and recuperate, and where your personal life takes place. But if that's also where you're working, I think having a separate room or a separate space for that you can then shut the door off at the end of the day, if you need to, whatever you need to do to then just close that away. But it is kind of more of a mental thing, isn't it? So maybe having a little bit of time, maybe on that walk, could be time to think and process, and then afterwards
put it to bed for the day.
Kind of find a way of being able to manage that.
I stopped working in a therapy space during the lockdown, because I wasn't able to travel to work anymore, and started working from home. And I found it really difficult to switch off from work. So my work day would kind of mesh and mix with my evening activities, and I'd end up doing a little bit of extra stuff in the evening because I was at home, and I would end up sort of 9-10 o'clock at night still thinking through things, still working, still answering messages, still responding to emails. And yeah, I really liked what you said about you need to have a time where you draw a line and you say, this is the off button, switch the off button, and then detach. And if you're struggling to switch off, then we're going to come to some of the solutions that you provide for that in a moment. Because before we get there, I want to talk about another stressor, which I feel is huge. We have seen in our practices over the last year, we've seen an increase in people with suicidal ideation. We've seen an increase in PTSD. We've seen an increase in very, very stressed people. It's like someone's turned up the volume on mental health at the moment. We're not seeing as much the clients who want to stop smoking or reduce their body shape and size, or reach health objectives or lifestyle objectives or confidence building. Those things have always been part of the work that we've done, but we're seeing more of the sort of challenging, more traumatic things now, because we're becoming very much the front line for more challenging situations. And I think something that we really need to be aware of as therapists is secondary trauma. And secondary trauma is experienced indirectly, simply because we're listening to the details, or we're even just witnessing the effect, the aftermath of a traumatic experience that has been experienced by another person. And I know for years I worked with social workers and actually sometimes legal solicitors and lawyers and people who were involved in court cases who had secondary trauma. But I actually feel that this is something that we need to be aware of as therapists now, just because of the more intense kind of clients that we're working with. We're exposed more to aggressive stories of bullying, lots of pressure. We're exposed to aggressive things on the TV. We're certainly seeing more clients who have got really low mood, who may have a diagnosis of depression, and we're certainly seeing a lot more clients who are experiencing suicidal ideation. And when we're listening to their story, that could impact us with secondary trauma. It's a real issue for us. Definitely. What can we do about that?
Well, I think the only thing we really can do is taking really good care of ourselves in the process, because I think it's one of the modules actually that we were about to kind of go on to discuss is emotional and energetic awareness. And I think this is really important for being able to know when you are starting to take on the energy or the emotions of somebody else. If you've had a session that has been really heavy, if there has been lots of stuff that has been very emotional and perhaps very difficult to hear and process yourself, to first of all to be aware of that, to be aware of how that is also impacting you, and then being able to sort of set those boundaries in place so that you know how to kind of manage that moving forward. And again, one of the other modules is about the importance of supervision and support, which I think is hugely important, because we, like you said, healers need healing, therapists need therapists, and we're all human. So actually, if there has been something that's been particularly triggering or something that you found difficult, having a therapy session yourself on that as well.
How many of
managing your own mental health at the same time?
How many of us actually put time aside every month to have therapy for ourselves? How many of us put time aside to just walk in nature, which I believe is therapy? How many of us put time aside for a massage or for a swim or a spa day. That, you know, I think we should just do something every single day that brings us joy, that brings us peace, that brings us happiness, and that nurtures us, because we are going to experience emotional fatigue. We are going to sometimes end up focusing on everybody's needs before our own. And if you're the sort of therapist that's on call, and I know a lot of our graduates work with people with addiction, and they make themselves available 24/7 for people who are struggling, like pick up the phone, don't pick up the substance, come and talk to me. Those people who are on call all the time, they're additional in the danger zone. And then we've got all the admin stuff. You've got your notes to write up, you've got your research to do, you've got your continuing professional development to do, you've got all your invoicing and your accountants and the mundane stuff that we have to do as part of business. We've got a lot of us are working for ourselves, we're marketing ourselves, and we end up wearing lots of different hats, don't we? And at the moment, let's not underestimate the impact of financial stress. We might not be feeling it at the moment, but we're certainly seeing it around us, and we know that when we're seeing it, that can have a secondary impact on us. And sometimes I think if we just feel like we're not progressing with clients at a speed that is adequate for us, that can feel frustrating as well. So many stresses, so many things that can lead to burnout for us. Let's talk about what we're offering at the college. Let's talk about your course that you've brought, because this is so packed with solutions for all of these things. Talk about the modules. Let's start with the modules, because it's a modular course, and once you've got access to it, it's yours forever. So you can keep going back, you can keep doing it again, because I need to keep doing things again. Sometimes I'll do thing and I'll think that worked really well and I feel better now, and then a few months down the line I'll have stopped doing it. It's great to be able to go back and just do it again and just keep going back to it. So once it's open, once you've got access to the course, you can do it again, and there's videos and there's a workbook and there's some extra excitement as well as some added extras in there. Tell us a little bit about the modules and what's addressed in each of those.
Yeah, of course. So it starts off with an introduction video, sort of talking about burnout more generally, sort of introducing the course and talking through what will be covered. Like you said, there is a workbook, and the video series that goes with it is essentially me kind of talking through the workbook, giving a bit more information, some more advice, talking through some of the activities that are in there. I have tried to include as many kind of activities and things as possible, so that you're really able to apply it. It's not just kind of reading information, taking that on. It's actually things you can practice, and tools that you can then use on a day-to-day basis, really, that you can kind of continue using moving forward.
Brilliant.
So the first module is the warning signs of exhaustion and burnout, which I think a lot of people think is probably just really obvious. You think, everybody knows what the warning signs of exhaustion and burnout are, when you're getting exhausted. But I think actually, like we were saying before, a lot of the time it is quite low level, and it can be something that kind of creeps up on you when you are really busy.
Yeah, and we enjoy what we do, and quite often, we're out there busy. People are telling us how wonderful we are. People are telling us how great we're doing. People are thanking us for helping them through this transformational process. People are praising us for the healing that we've provided in their lives. It feels great to have all of that,
and those things lift you up and also encourage you to keep going, which is great.
Which is great, but the drawback can be that you're not listening to those warning signs.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is that our body's always giving us signs and signals, and so our emotions and everything as well. But I think just kind of coming back into really listening to those, because I've found myself in my own kind of journey that if you don't listen to the kind of the calls of your body when it's kind of talking to you and telling you, then it'll start shouting at you, and then you will become ill. If you don't listen to when it's giving you the kind of the messages, they will become louder until you do something about it. So being able to recognize where those are and what the more common ones are for you as well, because you might kind of experience something, one of the symptoms a bit more than one of the others. So, for example, for me, it's largely like a mind fog kind of thing. It's more, it's largely mental, actually. I do obviously feel physically fatigued sometimes, and I get burnt out as well, but it's very much a mind fog thing. It's very much things just become more hard work than usual, which might be different for different people. So there is a list on there of things to kind of check in with, and to figure out what your kind of more common warning signs and symptoms are.
So see it and recognize it is kind of the within yourself. Be honest enough to recognize it within yourself is kind of the first part. What happens next?
So then it moves on to, which we've kind of mentioned briefly, the supervision support. So once you've kind of aware when you are starting to get those symptoms coming on, once you've pinpointed what they are, then being able to do something about it, to be able to take action in the form of supervision support. So one of the practices is coming up with as many different ways you can cultivate a support network around you. So whether that's with another therapist, whether it's with a mentor, perhaps a tutor or someone that you studied with who's an expert in the field, coming up with basically as many different ideas and different ways of creating a support network around you, and different resources as well as connections that you can then tap into, so that you've got all those tools ready, so that if you've already got them in place, and you're less likely to avoid doing something about it because you already know what you can do. You've already got that kind of laid out. So coming up with a bit of a structure and a bit of an idea of.
I can't tell you how important enough. I can't stress enough how important supervision is. Supervision can really help you develop your professional practice, but supervision is also there to help you spot when you need to have a bit more support for you personally in your own personal growth and development. You might actually really need just to have some therapy yourself. And I have a monthly session with a therapist. Just every month I have a session, and I have a monthly session with a massage therapist. It's fortnightly at the moment, because I needed a bit more, and I recognize that it's important for me to have that time for me to keep me well, and particularly at the moment with the weather and the climate and what's going on and the other additional stresses, we need to be really taking care of ourselves as well, don't we? So see it, recognize it, and then get some support. And that support can just be a really good friend for a cup of coffee. That support might be a walk in the park,
a phone call with a loved one.
Exactly. And there's loads of ideas, isn't there, of things that you can put in place in the workbook. Lots of different ways to get supervision. We offer supervision at the college. You can book. We've got trained supervisors at the college. You can work with Annabelle as well. As she can work with you and mentor you as well. And there are other people around. Find somebody. Get your cheerleaders, get your support group in place. And this workbook really clarifies that and enables that to happen. Brilliant. So we've seen it, we've recognized we need to do something, we've started to take action. What else is on the course?
So the next one was the emotional and energetic awareness, which we've sort of already mentioned again briefly. And this is about again, not just recognizing the warning signs, but actually kind of being aware of what your emotions and things are doing as well, and your energy levels, because we're all different in the way that we tend to work best. And so I think actually mapping out our energy levels throughout the day or throughout the week can be a really powerful way of then figuring out how to kind of structure and schedule days, if we're able to do that, if we've got the flexibility, then working when we're most energized, we're most positive, when we're feeling in the best state, to actually use that time to be working with clients. And then to perhaps sometimes when we're feeling a little bit less energized, that can be used to do admin or other kind of jobs around that. So kind of being aware of where your energy levels are, where your emotions kind of are, and how they fluctuate, and using that to help you actually as well. So Yeah, so
So that
take
you're
control.
delivering the things that you need most energy for at the times when you've got the most energy, and that when you've got less energy, recognizing that, and structuring your life to take care of your energy levels, and ensuring that you rest when you need to rest. I think that's a really useful part of the course that you've provided for us. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
What's next?
So next it's working smarter, not harder, which I think is something that I'm definitely still working on myself as well. But
Me too.
it's a work in progress for sure. But it's just finding even just small ways of making things more streamlined for yourself, making it more efficient, but also more enjoyable in that. So that we're not just working really hard all the time and pushing, so that we're kind of creating the space that we're doing things when it feels good to do them, and kind of finding ways to save our energy, basically, so that it's more efficient and that we're still getting the things we need to get done, but we're doing them in a way that isn't completely exhausting and draining, and finding fun ways to do that as well, even if that's just taking short breaks between things, or finding kind of ways of being able to
I recognize that one of the reasons why I tend to push is because I have some underlying limiting beliefs that come from this idea of you've got to work hard to achieve, you've got to work hard to succeed. So I think being aware of if there are any sort of underlying triggers or drivers or motivators that are actually coming from some kind of unhealthy experiences that you've had, and recognizing if there's some mindset work that you need to do so that you can make those changes within yourself, so that you feel that you can choose to work smarter and opt for the smarter, not harder. So we're seeing it, we're recognizing it, we're taking supervision, we're creating a network of people around ourselves to support us. We're working on mindset if that's something that we need to do. We're being aware of our energy levels and scheduling our life around when we've got more energy to do the more energetic things, and times to do more of the other things that we can incorporate into business when we've got less energy. And also we're looking at ways to work smarter, not harder. This course is fantastic. It really covers loads and loads of the really vital areas that we need to address to stay well and healthy while we're working. What else have you got in there? Because there's loads more, I know.
So the next module after that is doing the work on yourself, which I think is also a really powerful tool. Obviously, I'm not taking away from the supervision at all, because I do really think that the supervision is so important, because, like we sort of mentioned before, sometimes you don't really realize how things are impacting you until you go to somebody else to talk about it and you explore it with them. But in the meantime, there's, in addition to the supervision, doing the work on yourself on a daily basis, I think, is really important. Whether that's if hypnotherapy is something that you practice, then doing self-hypnosis in the morning. If it's EFT, then doing a short, session. If it's breath work, whatever your practice is. Even if it's coaching, asking yourself some of the coaching questions you might ask, writing them down, doing some journaling. So whatever it is that you're using to help other people, using that on yourself as well. And I think that we're in this line of work for a reason. You've come across these tools and these, this knowledge, these skills for a reason. And so why should you not benefit from that as well? I think using that to also help yourself on your own journey. And the more that you do that, also the more that you can hold space for other people. So I think it's going to really just be a really powerful thing for your personal life and for your work life. Making sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Take action, take care of yourself, heal thyself. And I know that there's also an EFT practice session in there that you've put together, which is beautiful. Really, it's totally created for this. And there's also a hypnotic audio as well, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Extras. Tell us about the other bits and pieces that are on there.
Yeah, so I thought to kind of follow on from the doing work on yourself, I thought having those kind of practices at the end was kind of a nice natural flow on from that. So the EFT session is EFT energy. So it's EFT but with kind of a bit extra on there. And so it does a cycle of tapping on the various different points, the meridian points. Um, and it does kind of one session, one kind of tapping around and is releasing. So it's letting go of what you're wanting to release. So in this session, it's obviously exhaustion and burnout. So it's kind of a guided session where I talk through,
I love
sort of
it.
tapping through the various points and just releasing and letting go of that on an energetic level and physically what you're holding on to in your body as well. And then once that's released and it's to a level on the scale that, you know, is appropriate or that you feel is right to then move on. Then we do another sequence, and that's the aligning sequence. So that's calling in what you want instead. So whether that's, you know, feeling refreshed or revitalized, feeling full of energy and positivity, enthusiasm, motivation, whatever it is that you want to kind of call in, you're then doing another cycle and you're affirming and calling in that instead. So it's a way of kind of aligning your energy, so that you're kind of releasing what you don't want and then calling in what you do. Which I think is a really powerful practice. And it's so straightforward. Once you know the tapping points, you can use that all the time. It's a really useful technique to just use on the go. You know, you can just tap these points whenever, affirming whatever feels right in the moment. And it's just a really powerful technique.
Yeah, we are all givers in this industry. We love to give. We give with all our hearts. We work in the most professional way that we can work. But we've got two hands. One is definitely for giving. We want to give to other people. We want to help people, want to guide people, want to support people. But we also need to receive ourselves. And burnout for therapists is a real challenge. It's always been a real challenge. But I think with the change in climate, the change in seasons, the change in what's going on in the world right now, we really need to give to ourselves. This course is an opportunity for you to step up for yourself, take care of yourself, avoid burnout if you can. And if you're recognizing some of the signs and symptoms just from listening to this podcast, this is for you too. And we have actually got a special discount code available for anyone who is a student or a graduate of the Northern College of Clinical Hypnotherapy. But we're quite happy to share that discount code with other people too. You can jump on Annabelle's website and you can have a look at all the amazing things that she does, and she will provide you with that code too. So you can get a little bit of discount off this amazing, really supportive, quite transformational course for therapists. It's just beautiful work, Annabelle. Thank you so much for putting it together. I've been really blessed to have a bit of a behind the scenes look at it, and I'm benefiting from looking at it from behind the scenes. I can't tell you how important it is to take care of yourself. If you're burnt out, if you're mentally ill because of your work, you can't do anything. You can't make money. You can't live with two hands, one for giving, one for receiving. You need to make sure that that's in balance. If you're feeling that you're out of balance, this is for you. If you're recognizing some of the symptoms, this is for you. Take that step to avoid burnout or to heal from it. And this is definitely something that you're going to benefit from. Can you say anything more on that? Final words?
I think you summed it up really well. I think it largely is around resilience and self-care, I would say. I think having that kind of resilience and being able to really take care of yourself in the process. But I think also just being gentle with yourself. Like there can be guilt when you are kind of struggling or when you're not able to kind of keep going or even give your best. But there just needs to be compassion and gentleness towards yourself, I think, throughout that process. And maybe even thinking of yourself as a different person, thinking of how you would talk to a client or to a friend might be helpful in the way that you then talk to yourself. Because I think we can often be quite hard on ourselves, and we do want to give the best that we can, especially in this line of work. Making sure that you're kind of giving to yourself as well, kind of filling up your own cup first, I guess, is a nice analogy.
Annabelle, thank you for coming on this episode of Hypno Geeks. Thank you for sharing about the course that you've put together for therapists. Thank you for all the work that you do. It's so important that we have therapists who look after therapists, coaches that coach coaches, and you can actually reach out and you can work with Annabelle one-to-one as well. Her information is on our website, and you'll find the course on our e-learning pages on the Northern College of Clinical Hypnotherapy website, and you can also get a discount code from Annabelle too via her website. I'll put all those details in the links with this video. Just leaves me to say thank you very much. Thank you for coming on this episode. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful, and whatever you're doing this month, however hard you're working, we wish you all the best, and we hope that you continue to thrive in your therapy business. Thanks for watching.